Hey guys, special episode for you today. I'm going to do a recap of our live event. So if you were in attendance of the live event, you are going to hear my thoughts a few weeks later so that I can help you guys understand and interpret everything that went on during that event. And if you didn't attend our live event, first I would say why? Why didn't you attend our live event? We have another one coming up in September 14th and 15th here in New Jersey. It is going to be absolutely world class. We are going to be going through exactly how to get patients without spending any money. Specifically, we are going to go through the most in-depth referral process you have ever seen. In addition to that, something in our practice at Strive to Move that we've become world-class at is getting people to stay on for performance packages after they finish their initial plan of care. And I can tell you that alone makes our company $15,000 to $20,000 per month. So if you would like to add $200,000 to $300,000 in revenue in your business without having to get any new patients, spend money on marketing, you're going to want to be there in September 14th and 15th. If you're interested, shoot me a DM on Instagram at Justin Rabinowitz. I'll make sure that we reserve a seat for you. We had 137 people this time, and it's grown every single one. And so we want to make sure that we can get you a seat. If you DM me, I will make sure, I will see to it. I'll let our team know that we can reserve a seat for you. I hope everything else is going exactly how you want it to go, but if it isn't, you know where to find me. ChiroBiz 101, we're here for you. Click the link in the bio. We'll talk to you soon. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Business School for the Rehab Chiropractor. Class is officially in session. My name is Justin Rabinowitz, and I am a rehab chiropractor on a mission to teach you, a fellow rehab chiropractor, the exact tools and systems I've used to build my own successful rehab chiropractic practice so you can do the same. I hope you enjoy, and please subscribe. So the first lesson I learned was just the power of accountability. So I've talked about my wife, Dell, on the podcast quite a bit and how the way that we generally run our life and business is that obviously she cares about the work and she's involved to a point, but in the business sense, she lets me do my thing. And that's our relationship and that's what works. And as she would say, she said, why would I tell you what to do here? This is what you do. I don't know anything about it. So to insert my thoughts and opinions would be silly. It's also why Dell and I get along so well because of that level of self-awareness. I have many clients who the bane of their existence is their spouse because their spouse always has an opinion and a thought and they don't know enough to have a thought or an opinion, but that's neither here nor there. But we were laying in bed on the Tuesday after our live event and one of our mastermind members sent me a DM about all of the progress that they had made in the short time they had been in our world. And this mastermind member had come from a different coaching group. And I read Dell the DM and she just paused, stopped and said, you know what I think the difference is between your group and other groups? And I was like, well, what? She's like, I think you actually make people do shit. It is not a suggestion. And so the word is accountability. You can have all of the information in the world, and we provide that for you in our mastermind and in ChiroBiz 101. All of the information is given. But what we do better than any other group out there is create a level of accountability, not just from me, not just from my team, but from you, from your peers. In our mastermind group, in our CEO program, one of the questions becomes, who is going to hold you accountable? And it's a fascinating question because people write down answers and generally they don't double check on them. There are people who said they would do certain things, said they would take certain actions, and they didn't do them. And when I asked their accountability partners what happened, they sort of put their hands in the air. Well, what's the purpose of having an accountability partner if they're not going to hold you accountable? When we get in that room with 137 rehab chiros, someone in that room has to hold you accountable for the actions. Because if the information is the same, and you said you were going to raise the price, and you said you were going to start marketing, and you said you were going to increase your marketing units, and you don't, it is not an information problem. It is an accountability problem. And the biggest challenge we have in life, specifically when we become a business owner, is that there is no one to hold us accountable. And this is abnormal. If you think about it, you were born, and Your parents or a family member raised you and they held you accountable to make sure that you got up on time and got to the bus so you could go to school, and that you did your homework, and that you took care of yourself, and that you acted as a model citizen. They held you accountable for that. And there was consequences if not. And then in school, you had teachers who had assignments and deadlines, and you had to behave in a certain way. And then many of you played sports, who had coaches who had demanded a certain level of expectation and showing up for practice on time and treating people in a certain way and performance. And then you get into your first job and you have a boss who hopefully holds you accountable and makes sure, again, you show up on time and that you perform and that hit your numbers and KPIs. That would be a great leader and great boss. And then you start your own business. And people mistake freedom for accountability. The biggest challenge that people face when they open their own business is that they have to hold themselves accountable. And it is almost impossible because for the first 25, 30, 35 years of your life before you became a business owner, you always had someone else holding you accountable. So my first biggest takeaway from our live event is that the number one thing in life and business is that you have people holding you accountable. No one is good enough to hold themselves accountable to the level necessary. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, you name the best athletes of all time. They all had coaches. They had multiple coaches. They had teammates. Tiger Woods, he had his dad, and then he had swing coaches. There is no one that you look at who you admire who didn't have someone to hold them accountable. And so if you are in business right now and on your own and you're having fun figuring it out on your own, or you're just hoping and waiting until it fails or you figure it out, I would just caution you to say, you've never done that in your life. Don't be silly. Don't be stupid. Don't be too proud, because you need people in your life to hold you accountable. Number two, acceptance of maybe. The acceptance of maybe. One of the challenges people face in their business is that they accept BS answers. When they get a patient in the door and they ask them if they want to proceed with a plan of care, they say, "Oh, I'll let you know," or "Maybe let me talk to my spouse," or. And you know how I know they accept it? Because that's how they speak to me. And whatever you do and however you show up in your life is how you patients are going to treat you. My coach always says, you teach people how to treat you. And so at our live event, there were multiple people there who came to that event. They traveled far and wide, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. And they get there knowing that the best move for them, they just see the results. They should take ChiroBiz 101. That's why they're there. They get a discount. They should do it. And when I ask them if they were going to do it, they waffle and they say, I'll let you know. Maybe I'll let you know. I'm not sure. And I guarantee you, if they told that when their patients tell them that, or when their clients tell them that in their practice, I can guarantee you they say, "Oh, okay, let me know." Why? Because you teach people how to treat you. I can tell you how I handled that. When they said, "Oh, I'll let you know," and maybe, I said, "No, absolutely not." Now, the next thing I said is key. I said a yes is good and a no is good. But I will let you know, or maybe, that is not okay. Because by that point, if they were not either in or they were out, then this was a procrastination problem. And I do not allow people to treat me that way. Why? Because it is not the best thing for them. I truly mean it when I say you can say yes or you can say no, but there is no in between. And so when I got that response of, "Hey, are you ready to enroll in ChiroBiz 101?" They said, "Oh, I'll let you know." I said, "Absolutely not. It's a yes or it's a no. Both are okay. Which one do you want?" "Well, I'm not sure." "Do you think it's the right thing for you?" "Well, I think so." So is it a yes or is it a no? And the two people that gave me these responses, they signed up for the program. And you know what? That tactic, I believe, was the kindest thing I ever did for them, because it taught them a lesson. It helped them understand that if they want to be better in their world and in their business, and they want to be better for their family and better for their patients and better for their staff, they need to be decisive. As I said, and I mean it, yes is fine, no is fine. But in the middle, you're going to live a life of pain and struggle. So many of you guys listening to this podcast that have been listening to maybe I should, and you live your entire life going that way. I mean, if I went to a restaurant with you guys, you would look at the menu for 30 minutes. I mean, oh my God, imagine if you come to my September event and we go to Cheesecake Factory and you look at that menu. We will be there for a year before you decide on what 8 million items you want. Why? Because you live a life of being indecisive. And if you live a life of being indecisive, the people around you will be indecisive, your potential patients will be decisive, your staff, your family will be indecisive. If you want to grow as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to make a decision. You have to also accept that sometimes you might not make the right decision, but you need to make a decision. And so the acceptance of maybe is something that is not the standard that I live in my life, and neither should you. Number 3. The most fascinating thing I find about our coaching group is the first course people take is called Chiro Biz 101. It is a 7-week course. We go through the marketing, the sales, the core values, the sales process. We teach you finance, KPIs, and it is the same course that over 250 people have gone through. And what I find to be absolutely fascinating is that the results vary widely. On average, the average is that from people taking that course, they make an extra $13,000 in change per month more. We did the calculation. That's an extra I think it's $450 per day after they take that course. But it's an average. We have had people that have started at 0 and make $45,000. We have people that started at 10 and they made $78,000. We have people that started at 11, made $58,000. We have people that started at 30 and make $70,000. So there are people that are way above it. And there are a few that are below it. On average, it's $14,000 per month. And what's fascinating is the information is exactly the same. So what is the key? If the information is the same, what's the key factor? It's the implementation. And so the X factor in your life and in your business and the success you're having, or if you aren't having the success that you want, the problem is the implementation of the information. There is no doubt in my mind, the data shows that the information is correct. The program works. The thing that you need to do is look in the mirror. You need to look in the mirror and say, do I work? Now, we can help you with that. Many of you don't even have the right information. But you have to understand that the key in life is not information, it's implementation. What I believe we do better than everyone else in this industry is that we help people actually take the concepts and information and implement it. And you should too. Number 4, another huge takeaway from the live event weekend is that business is freaking lonely, man. Some of you listening to this podcast, you have an office by yourself. You walk in every day. You have 4, 5, 6 patients. You have no office staff. You have 4 walls, and they are staring back at you. And then they start to talk, and they don't say nice things. Why? Because business is lonely. Less than 10% of the world are entrepreneurs. Less than 4% of the country in the U.S. get to 7 figures in revenue. Which means that when you walk down the street, literally, if there are you and 9 other people, not one of them owns a business statistically. And if you are lucky enough to make 7 figures, you will be 4 out of 100. 4 out of 100. 4 out of 100. It is so lonely to be in business. And when we started our program back in 2022, I knew as fast as possible we had to bring a live event to the table. And we're coming out of the pandemic. We're coming out of all this where people didn't want to travel and they want to do Zoom and they want to do this. And that first live event, we had 25 people show up. The reason why I did it even before we were ready is because I knew that people need to be in person. They need a community. They need a group. They need to look at people, talk to people. They need to hang out with people that think like them, that act like them, that have the same characteristics, that have the same character traits as they do. That is why we do the live events, because business is so lonely. And if you're out there and you feel lonely, maybe the next step of your growth is simply getting around a community of people. So you just feel a little bit better about yourself. You just don't have to question if you're the only one with the problem. You can start to live in a world where other people are actually going through it, have gone through it just like you. Because if not, business is really, really lonely. Hey guys, a quick interruption for you. If you have listened to this podcast and gotten tremendous value out of it and not taken our Chiro Biz 101 course, let me tell you, the results are absolutely fantastic. After taking that course, people make on average $13,000 to $14,000 per month more than before. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have not taken Chiro Biz 101, please go into the show notes, click on the link, schedule a call, and we will see if it is a good fit for you. Now, back to the show. The next one, number 5. Number 5 is validation. So at the end of the live event, one of the questions in the booklet is, what's your biggest takeaway from the weekend? And without fail, every live event, I ask people the question, and then Mike Guardino every time asks me the same question. He said, Justin, what's your biggest takeaway? And I thought about it for a second. My biggest takeaway from the weekend was validation. It was validation. Like all of you, you go into business and you think you're doing the right thing or you hope to do the right thing and you're never always sure. And really the only way you can measure it is money in the bank and the reviews of the customers and how's your staff doing. But you never actually know, right? You never actually know how you're doing. But when Mike Michalowicz, our guest speaker, got on stage, he spoke for 70 minutes. And to the point that after the event, again, I mentioned my wife in the beginning, she said, Mike was excellent. He was a really good speaker. So many of the things that he said are things that you say as well. And I said, you know what, Del? I thought the same thing. Things like when he was questions on what to do in your business, his first move was raise your price. I was like, oh, sounds like something that we say all the time. A statement that we say all the time, what got you here won't get you there. What got you here will get you stuck. Something that Mike said on stage is something that we say all the time in the Rehab Chiro Mastermind. And here's a guy who's a 9-time published author. He's a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. He's built and sold multiple companies for multiple 7 figures. He speaks all over the country and all over the world many, many times. I'll give you the number in a sec. And he is saying the same things that we are doing. And so my biggest takeaway from that event, from the live event, was validation. That truly, between myself, our team, and our members, we are doing the right thing. Number 6, my number 6 takeaway, my 6th takeaway from the live event is that you cannot fake it in person. You cannot fake it in person. On the second day of the live event, we were talking about sales and we were talking about putting content out and we were talking about, the process that we have. And I stopped and I said, just out of curiosity, raise your hand in this room if before you started in this program that you were skeptical of me. 99% of hands in the room went up. That's 130 something people. I'm very aware that that's the possibility and that's the case. By the way, I'm not the only one. You in business that are listening to this, if you don't think your customers are even more skeptical, you are crazy. It ain't me, folks. It's people. The point is that you cannot fake it in person. People see me on Instagram, they see me on social media, they hear what I have to say, blah, 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 blah. They come on the calls, blah, 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 blah. And as they thought, and as they said, they hear testimonials and they still think, maybe this guy's full of it. Maybe he's full of crap. Maybe the things he preaches, he doesn't actually do. But the reason why we do it in person is because I want to show everyone in the flesh. I want them to see it. I want them to see it. I want them to see what it's about. I want them to meet my team. I want them to ask them the questions about me. I want them to be around us because you can't hide when you're in person. I can preach a good game and I can talk about standards. And of course, you're going to get it wrong every once in a while. You might have a staff member go rogue. I'm not immune to that. But by and large, we get it right most of the time. We have standards. We have the right characteristics. We show gratitude. We care about our customers. We do the right thing by them. And I am so proud of that. But again, I am very aware that we put on live events so that people can come in and try to catch us out. And I see it as a challenge because you know what? So many other people, they would never do it. They would never do that because they're afraid. The people with the most secrets is the least free. I've always said, we got no secrets here. We tell you everything, the good, bad, the ugly. I've told people I will share absolutely anything with you in our group outside of my staff's salaries, which is their business, not yours. Other than that, we're an open book. There are no secrets. There are no secrets because you can't fake it in person. You can't fake it in person. My last takeaway from the live event. I mentioned before that at the end, we say, what are your biggest takeaways? And we had a husband and wife who came to the event, lovely people. They drove 14 hours from Wisconsin. And the husband's the Chiro, the Rehab Chiro, and the wife is helping out in the business, and she comes from a corporate marketing background. And let's just say she was more than a little skeptical of it. And when I asked her after the event on social about what her biggest takeaways were, she sent me a screenshot of her booklet, and her number one takeaway was, this is not a scam. So I mentioned how people are often very, very, very hesitant. They're very skeptical. They think it's a scam, all of those things. And I get it. I understand it. Again, it's human nature. That's just how people are. But I love it when we can prove people wrong, especially when we can prove people wrong in such a good sense. And there was nothing that we showed up that weekend for me to think, oh, let me prove to people it's not a scam. That wasn't why we showed up. We showed up to just be who we are and do what we've done. And I walked into that weekend knowing that I did absolutely everything I could. And however it turned out, it turned out. My team, if I told you the amount of work that went into that weekend, if I told you the amount of prep that they did to get ready for it, if I told you, I mean, we have a document, a running document of every person's face that shows up to that event, and our team is tasked to study it to the point that when people show up that they've never met us before, we go greet them and we know things about them because that's the level that we are playing at. So I don't worry about it being a scam because at the end of the day, when I put my head on the pillow and I look up at night, I know it's not. I know who we are. I know what we stand for. I know what our standards are. And that's all I care about. How everyone else receives it, it's on them. Fortunately, they believe the same thing. Now, before I wrap up, I actually have a bonus. Do not turn this off because this might be the most important lesson. So as I've grown in the business world and now fortunately I've had access to some super high-end people, Dan Martell, Mike Michalowicz, and a slew of others, I'm always talking, I'm always observing, I'm always seeing how they operate, and I'm looking for commonalities. As we were waiting to get on stage and I was about to introduce Mike, I asked him a question like saying, hey, are you ready? Or, or do you get nervous for these talks? And he said, I get excited. But the next thing he said was the important point. He goes, you got to understand. He goes, I speak 50 times a year. 50 times a year. So there's 52 weeks in a year. On average, he does basically one talk a week all over the country and the world. He then gets up on stage and delivers for 70 minutes, a world-class talk. He's got the stories and he's got this and he's got that and he makes you laugh and he makes you cry and he gives you the information over and over and over again. And he's been doing this for, I don't know, a decade. And so if you do 50 talks a year over the course of a decade, you've gotten 500 reps at the same thing. And so for all of you guys out there that I say, I'm not good at speaking, I don't do well with this, I'm not good at marketing, I can't write emails, I can't blah, 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 I don't know how to manage staff. The thing that I would ask you is, have you put the time in? Have you done the reps? If you listen to Mike, it was like a symphony. I mean, it was wonderfully done. Wonderfully done. But I can guarantee you it didn't start that way. How do I know? Because the next part of the story. At the end of the event, I surprised Mike. I showed him a picture of a building. And I said, Mike, do you recognize this? And to my surprise, he did, actually. He said, this is the Somerset County Chamber of Commerce. And I said, go on. He said, every time I put together a new speech, I have an arrangement with the leader of the Somerset County Chamber of Commerce that I go and test new material. I didn't know that. But the reason why I showed him that picture was because in 2015, I showed up to a Somerset County Chamber of Commerce event that a guy named Mike McAllis was speaking at. And that day was when he was testing out his new material. It was called the Pumpkin Plan. And almost a decade later, I got to see what happens after doing the Pumpkin Plan for almost a decade. If he spoke 500 times in the past decade, let's just call it that. He does 2 talks. He does Pumpkin Plan and he does Profit First. So let's split it in half. I got to see him do it the first time and the 250th time. It is hard for me to believe that you guys out there listening to this, if you do something 250 times, if you have a back pain speech and you go to CrossFit gyms, I guarantee you if you do it 250 times, it is going to be significantly better the 250th and the first. But some of you guys haven't even done rep 1 or rep 3 or rep 5 or rep 200 or rep 225. I think the problem that many of us have is that we just don't understand what is necessary to be successful. So many of us think that people ahead of us have this unbelievable skill, that we're just supremely talented. And many times it isn't that at all. And actually the skill is that they're willing to do it long enough. They're willing to persist long enough. They're willing to do the reps. And in your position, that if you're listening to this and you aren't where you want to be, something I would encourage you to do is to get around the people that have done it multiple times so that you can shortcut the process. Because if you're trying to do a cash-based practice and you have 40 patients that you've done it for and it's worked 20 times, well, you need to learn from people that have done it 400, 4,000 times. Because what are you going to do? You're going to wait until you figure it out, till times 250? I can tell you that is very costly. That is very costly because you know what? You're practicing on your patients. That's a problem. You might as well drive down the street, go get thousands of dollars out of the bank and just throw it out the window, because that's exactly what you're doing by not having the skill, by not doing it enough, and by not being around people that have been there before. And so for all of you out there, just understand what is necessary and what is required. You not only have to do the reps, but you have to be around people that have done the reps already, because they can tell you where you're going to screw up. Or you could just learn it yourself. But I can tell you that is really dumb because it costs a lot of money. So if you're listening to this and you've gotten a lot out of the podcast, I've never been more confident in what I'm about to say next. That in your school and business career, enrolling in ChiroBiz 101 will be the best investment you've ever made. How do I know? Because that's what the numbers tell us. Imagine a world where you spent $5,000 for something, and even if you failed, you're still going to make, on average, $10,000 more per month. So you spend $5,000, you make $120,000. Spend $5,000, make $120,000. If that was a stock, you would be very, very rich. So if you're out there, I challenge you to give yourself a chance. There are people listening, you are driving, and you know who you are, that you just need to give yourself a chance. You don't have the money, you don't have the time, you don't have the confidence. Those are all bad reasons. Because if you can give $5,000 and make 100 and something thousand per year, and you didn't take that up on that offer, you are crazy. Don't be crazy. I know we can help you. I know we can help you. I know we can help you. We've helped hundreds and hundreds of people. $14,000 on average per month. If I'm half wrong per month, it's $7,000. If I'm 3/4 wrong, it's $3,000 and $3,500. $3,500 more per month is all $40,000 in a year. You spend $5,000 and make $40,000. If I'm 3/4 wrong, you spend $5,000 and make $40,000. The only reason you would say no is because you just don't believe in yourself enough. I believe in you. I believe in you, and I know you can. Please take me up on my offer. All right, guys, we are at the end of the podcast, and you know what that means. It is time for me to beg you, to plead you, to encourage you that if you are listening to this podcast and you are getting a lot of value out of it, just remember and think about, what could you get if you actually let me coach you live and in person, one-on-one in our group of mastermind members? So here's what I want you to do. If you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, getting a lot of value, but have not taken ChiroBiz 101, I want you to go into the show notes. In the show notes, we have a link. It is go.rehabchirocoach.com/strategy call. That is go.rehabchirocoach.com/strategy call. I want you to book a strategy call with our team so that we can see if you are a good fit for ChiroBiz 101. At our last count, we have gotten our clients 177% growth from that program. So if you haven't taken our course and if you listen to the podcast and get value, I want you to book that call. I'll see you later.